Hey guys, so I am going to try and talk about guiding principle number 4. It's been a while since I did number 3. And the reason it's taking me so long is not only because I'm so busy, but number 4 is like really complicated because it's different for all of us and there's so many different components of it. And it's probably one of the harder things to overcome, and that is challenging the food police. The food police, I'm sure we all have them, have had them, hear them every day maybe. It's basically just those voices in your head that tell you, all the negative things when it comes to food. Like, I can't believe you ate that. You're going to gain 10 pounds. You're so fat. Like, you can't eat that. It's bad for you. That's too many calories. All of those different kinds of things that are related to food that you hear in your head that are negative or, just mean, I guess. Are what she talks about as being the food police. So I'm just going to kind of flip through this and talk about some of the main things and just kind of relate it to myself as well. But like I said, it's, the voices that say anything negative about food. And she kind of talks about 3 different voices that she breaks them into categories, which is actually kind of helpful as you try and overcome these voices. So the food police is just the sum of all your dieting rules. So don't eat after 7, don't eat, more than 50 grams of carbs a day. You didn't exercise, so you better eat less or you better not eat dinner. It's not time to eat yet, so don't eat that, even if you're hungry. You ate too much. Those kind of things that are diet-based, that's the food police. And the other one she talks about is the nutrition informant. And you would think, okay, the nutrition informant sounds positive because it informs you about nutrition. But in this, or what she talks about, is that this particular voice is the one that, yes, it's talking about nutrition, but in a way that is keeping you in the diet mode. So for example, it might say you have to count all your carbs, only eat fat-free foods, don't eat any foods with added sugar, things like that, which sound, like they're coming from a nutritious place, okay, yeah, you don't want to eat too much sugar or whatever, but it is, it's under a guise, is what she says. So it's coming across as it's trying to keep you healthy. However, it's really just keeping you on a diet or in the diet mentality, because those are rules. And true nutrition, having an overall balanced nutrition and balanced health, doesn't need to eliminate all sugar or doesn't need to count carbs. That's not necessary, and that's just more rules. So yeah. Then the last one she talks about is the diet rebel, and I know that this was a big one for me and a lot of people that go on and off diets. Is that at some point, it's usually after you've been good for a few days or whatever, that this voice pops up and it might say something let me see how much I can eat before so-and-so gets home, or I can't wait till so-and-so leaves the house so I can eat a whole bunch of food, or just if you're basically get down on yourself, I'm never going to lose the weight, so, I'll show you, I'm just going to eat all this food, or, I don't know, it's just when you're rebelling against your diet, you're basically screw you diet, I'm going to go eat what I want. And I know I was there basically every weekend. I was screw you, I have been miserable all week, I want to eat this freaking cookie and I'm going to eat it, so suck it. Which is essentially what that voice said for me. So that's the diet rebel. So basically, then I'll get into the opposite voices in a second. So she we have all these voices, and so we need to overcome them. We need to replace them with something more positive. And so she basically gives a, an opposite voice, I guess, or a contradictory voice for each one to so we obviously can't stop those thoughts from coming into our head. They're a habit. They're not just going to all of a sudden go away. So when we say one of those things oh, you're going to get so fat, you just ate that piece of pizza, then she gives you a voice to counteract that and something to say to counteract what you just said, because the only way to overcome these voices is to, ignore them, not listen to them, and honestly talk back in your head and say, that's irrational, I'm not going to gain 10 pounds, it's a piece of pizza, I might be bloated because it has some salt in it, but I certainly didn't gain 10 pounds. So that's how we overcome them, and So, I kind of wanted to address, she gives a great example of how to kind of recognize like where you are voice-wise. And she talks about going to your grandma's house and there's a plate of brownies there. So if you are like in a diet mentality, this is kind of what she, breaks down as what might happen, and I totally relate to this. I've been so good on my diet the last few weeks. I haven't had any ice cream or any sweets. I'd sure love to have one of those brownies, but I shouldn't, and I won't. I should not, because it's all about shoulds with diets. If I have a brownie, I'll blow my diet. I won't be able to stop. Oh, maybe one will just be okay. So you go through all those voices, and then, as we all know, at some point you're gonna convince yourself, oh, just one is gonna be okay. So then you eat the brownie, and in a diet mentality, I know this is what I would have said to myself. Oh, I shouldn't have done that. That was stupid. I have no willpower. I have no self-control. It's all my fault that I'm fat. Will I ever be able to lose weight? Or I'll never be able to lose weight. And then you're obviously feeling disappointed, sad, out of control, all those kind of things. And then, so what usually happens after that? So you feel like crap. You already blew your diet. So what's going to happen? You're probably going to eat another brownie. Maybe even a third one. Maybe even the whole plate. Not going to lie, I've been there. So, and then how do you feel? You feel miserable. And, if it's me, I go veg out somewhere and just feel awful about myself. So let's see what the opposite then of that would be. Like, what would it be like if you didn't have those particular voices and you started replacing them with the more healthy, positive voices? So, like, in an intuitive eater, like, I'm so glad I gave up dieting. I can eat anything I want, anytime I want. I'd sure love to have one of those brownies. So you eat the brownie. Now what happens? Man, that was good. I'm satisfied with just this one. There's nothing like Grandma's brownies. How do you feel? Satisfied, content, pleasure. And then as an intuitive eater, there would be no problem leaving the rest of the brownies on the plate and going off to enjoy an afternoon with Grandma. I know that sounds silly, but because you didn't fail anything, you didn't blow anything, there's no reason to be like upset, there were no rules to break. And so that's kind of the ideal place we want to get to, is just being able to be a normal eater. Like a normal eater would sit down, eat a brownie, like, okay, that was good, and move on with their day. And I know that myself, I always thought that was impossible, but it's not, and it's still a challenge for me, but it's not impossible. And the thing that makes it impossible is being on a diet, for sure. Okay, so then she kind of talks about, like I said, the opposite voices, right? So we had the diet rebel, the food police, and the nutrition informant. So the two voices that she kind of talks about to counteract those is the food anthropologist. That's a big word for me this early in the morning. And the nurturer. So she kind of has this little chart right here. See if you can see it. And so it really helps kind of break it down. And the food anthropologist, that sounds so wrong. I know how to say that word. You know what I mean. That voice is a neutral observer. It's non-judgmental, and it keeps you in touch with your inner like hunger signals, and psychologically like it's not harmful. So instead of saying something like, "Oh, you ate that piece of pizza, you're gonna gain 10 pounds," say, "Oh, I ate that piece of pizza. I might be bloated after because it has salt, but it's not gonna be judgmental. It's just like observing how you feel biologically, psychologically, but it's not saying, oh, you're going to be so fat." And then the nurturer kind of helps overcome the food police, because the food police is so negative and so attacking, and you're never going to lose the weight, you have to do this, this, and this. And the nurturer is kind of the voice that we need to use to be more kind to ourselves. So instead of being like, oh, you're never going to lose the weight, what would overcome that? Like for me, if I tell myself I'm never going to lose the weight, I'll be like, hey, you are doing the best you can every day. You are learning every day. You are progressing every day. I'm not going to worry about, what's going to happen in the future, because I just need to worry about right now. And I'm feeling good about the choices that I'm making, and so forth. Or you can't eat after 7. Hey, if I'm hungry after 7, then yes, I can eat because my body needs fuel. Things like that. So another thing that she talks about with our voices is, I know that this totally applied to me, and I think it applies to a lot of dieters, is absolute thinking. This is the all or nothing thinking. And I was such an all or nothing thinker, and I still am sometimes with the intuitive eating thing. So like that's basically, I'm sure you know, like I'm either all in doing this diet perfectly or I'm not doing it at all. Like I'm doing it or I'm just completely breaking it. Then there's like no middle ground. And this kind of with this absolutist thinking, and so that's like what happens, right? So you mess up according to the diet and you eat a cookie. Well, you're like, well, now I'm not doing the diet perfectly, so then I might as well be not doing it at all. And then you go and eat a bunch more food. That's what I did. So it also talks about like getting rid of the shoulds, the needs to, the supposed tos. Anytime we use those kind of words, we are just setting ourselves up for disappointment and failure. Because if you're like, I should never eat sugar, you're going to eat sugar at some point. Like, it's going to happen. And to put yourself in that situation is just setting yourself up for one day being like, crap, I totally failed because I ate sugar. Or I need to eat 6 servings of vegetables a day. And the day that doesn't happen, how are you going to feel? Crap, I failed. So it's just going to create anxiety. Why? Like, those words and that type of thinking is just going to create unneeded anxiety. And, like, it's just setting yourself up for feeling bad. So instead, she talks about using words like can, is okay, and may. So, like, it's okay if I don't lose weight before the wedding. I can eat whenever I'm hungry. If I want, I can eat whatever foods I like. I may have anything that looks good for me. Using positive, permission-granting words, not negative, taking away words. Because it's just not going to work. It's not going to work. Catastrophic thinking is another one she talks about. Totally did this and do this. I'll never be thin. It's hopeless. I'll never get a job. I'll never get a boyfriend at this weight. My life is ruined because I'm so fat. If I let myself eat candy bars and whatever I want, I'll eat them forever. This is all catastrophic thinking because it's extreme and it's not true. And it's just exaggerated. And it really just it doesn't help anything. Like, what does it help me to say I'll never be thin? How does that? It doesn't help at all. And it's just usually happens when you're just feeling really down and you're just like, I don't know, spiraling down into this negative thing. But yeah, and I feel like it too, if you say like I'll never be thin or my life is ruined because I'm so fat, that just kind of sets you up to think that the only important thing in life is being skinny or, losing weight. Like, hello, like we're put here for more than that. And so I feel like it just kind of ruins our priorities a little bit. And then she also talks about pessimistic thinking, and this happens a lot with dieting as well. Like if you say, oh, I had a terrible week, rather than being like, I had some success this week, or I overate so many times, rather than saying, but I had many times when I honored my hunger, or all I ate was sweets, which we know is not true. But instead saying, I had more sweets than I wish I would have, but I had a lot of other foods too. I feel so fat. I'm feeling better about myself. I'm such a failure. I'm doing better little by little. Okay, so we just need to be aware, and like when you hear these pessimistic, negative thoughts, the only way those are ever going to go away is if we stop giving them power, we ignore them, and we replace them with something positive. And it doesn't just have to be positive when you hear a negative. Okay, the more that we can say these positive thoughts to ourselves during the day, even without being a response to a negative one, the better. So, for a while I need to get back into it, but I was practicing like standing in front of the mirror every morning and saying 3 things I liked about myself, physically, personality, whatever. Because the more that you do that, the more that your brain starts changing, and it really does. So yeah, it doesn't just have to be when you have a negative thought, but every time you have a negative thought, you should combat that with something positive, because it's just going to make your positive thinking stronger and your negative weaker. Okay, and then so basically the last thing that she talks about is linear thinking, and basically this is just thinking that dieting and losing weight or whatever is just going to be one straight line. And like if you follow a very specific plan and it allows no deviations, then you're going to get where you're going, and it's just going to be like straight there. And some things that linear thinkers might think is that all that is important is that I lose this weight. It's all that's important. I just need to lose this weight. The faster I lose weight, the more successful I am. To be successful, I must reach my goal weight by a specific date, because you're thinking linearly and you're like, okay, I'm going to get there by then. I will lose 2 pounds a week with no fluctuations. So this kind of thinking allows for no ups and downs. It's not even, it makes no sense because, like, especially as you get closer to your goal weight, it's not going to be linear. It's not going to be 2 pounds a week. It's not going to maintain itself at like it did at the beginning. And all it does is set us up for disappointment because we're like, I was supposed to be at this weight by then. Well, like, why do you need to be at that weight by then? What is the rush? It's not a race. It's about feeling better day by day, and it's not about this future date that we arbitrarily set based on some calculation we did on some website. Because life doesn't work that way. It's just not that calculated. There's going to be fluctuations. There's going to be life changes. There's going to be things that happen that cause this thing to go up and down. And it's about, just doing your best every day and feeling better each day. It's when we put a date on something, it's setting us up, up for disappointment because a lot of times people that even do meet their goal weight by a certain date are still not happy because, the number doesn't matter. What people really want is not a number. They want to look a certain way. Anyone that tells me, oh, I want to be 130 pounds, I'm like, how'd you come up with that? Maybe because they used to be 130 or they see someone else that's 130. But the real thing that you want is to look a certain way. And so, like, there was a time when I got to my goal weight and I still wasn't happy because I didn't look the way that I wanted to look. Which sometimes we have way too much of an unrealistic view of how we want to look, which is a problem anyways. But anyways, so what I'm saying is that, having that linear thinking where you're like, I'm going to get to this weight by then, there's really no point to that, not only because it's probably, it's just setting you up for disappointment, but because, like, why, I don't know, just the goal weight for me, I feel like is what people don't really want. I feel like what people really want is just to look a certain way, and that might not be what the number is. They may not line up, so you might want to be 130, but then you don't look how you want at 130, but, anyways, got off track. But, yeah, so I feel like this is a really hard, challenging the food police is hard. Because the longer you've been dieting, the more strength these food police have. And I feel like for me, I've gotten rid of a lot of their voices, like, I can't eat at a certain time, or, like, I'll eat lunch now at, like, 10:30 if I'm hungry, if I ate breakfast early. Before, a food police voice would have said, oh, it's too early to eat, and now I don't even hear that anymore, because I know it's not too early, I'm hungry. I'm getting better with certain foods, like eating pasta or just like heavy carb foods. Before it would have been like, that's too many carbs. And I don't even hear that anymore because I've ignored it enough to where it's gone away. But I feel like the ones that are probably the hardest are like sweets for me. And I think for a lot of people, like candy, ice cream, cookies, brownies, all those kind of foods, like, because they are never allowed on any diet, or rarely, I should say, they're allowed on some, but I feel like they're the hardest foods to overcome, and like the food police and the nutrition informant and all that are working together against those, like too much sugar, too much fat, like can't eat that, too much whatever. So I struggle with those, but even those have gotten a lot better. I eat frozen yogurt now without any reservation. I feel like the food that I'm struggling with the most right now is candy because, like, I don't know, it's just, I guess I never had it around before, and my voices in my head are still kind of like telling me, okay, you can eat that, but like you really shouldn't be. So that's one I still need to overcome, but it can happen, and you just have to be proactive about it and really combat it with those positive voices. But as long as those voices are still there, it's going to be, a struggle to intuitive eat all the time. But that's okay because, this transition into intuitive eating is not supposed to be perfect. So you have to know going into it that there are going to be times when the food police win and when the nutrition informant wins and when the diet rebel wins and you overeat because those voices are still there. And that's fine. But it's going to be a struggle. However, I would rather struggle with something that I know in the long run is going to pay off and make me feel a million times better than struggle on a diet that's going to fail eventually and make me feel like crap and I'm going to have to start another one. Like with intuitive eating, at least you struggle with something that this is going to be the thing for life. Like, you're not going to have to change off of this. You're going to get better and better at it. You're going to feel better, and the end goal is obviously to be like a normal eat in moderation eater. Whereas with the diet, the end goal is just to get to your goal weight, and then it doesn't teach you what to do after that. Like, anyways, so I think it's worth the struggle, and it's okay that it's not going to be overnight. I've been trying this for like 4 months now, and I still have some food police goals in my head, but I can promise you, August me versus November me, so different thinking and thoughts. That was really poorly said, but you know what I'm saying. So I'm going to go. I just totally went on for 20 minutes. I'm sorry, but like I said, this is a huge thing, and it's hard to overcome, but it's worth it, and it just takes constant practice, like positive voices, positive sayings. So yeah, you can do it. I really recommend trying to, like, maybe every time you sit down and eat, say something positive. Every time you go get in the shower, say something positive in the mirror. Just the more that you do it, the more your brain will transform. So hope this helped, and if you made it to this point, serious kudos. Like, I would be impressed. Yeah. You should totally comment below if you made it, because you deserve something for that. Hope you have a good one, and I'll see you for principle number 5 sometime. Bye.